My fiancé texted, "I expect a $38,000 wedding ring." I replied, "You'll get what you deserve." Then I gave her a plastic one. Her reaction went viral, and 24 hours later, she was begging to apologize. I, 29M, thought I knew the woman I was planning to marry. 3 years together, living together for the past year, and what I believed was genuine love between us. That illusion shattered with a single text message that changed everything. The message came while I was in a crucial client meeting. My phone buzzed, and seeing her name, I quickly glanced at it thinking it might be important. The words on my screen made my stomach drop. "I expect a $38,000 wedding ring. My friends all have rings worth at least that much, and I won't be embarrassed by anything less." I stared at that message for a full minute while my client continued talking about quarterly projections. $38,000. For context, that was more than half my annual salary after taxes. We had discussed the ring before, and I had shown her several beautiful options in the $3,000 to $5,000 range that I had been saving for. She had seemed excited about them just weeks earlier. I excused myself from the meeting and called her immediately. She answered with that sweet voice she used when she wanted something, asking if I had seen her message. I told her we needed to talk about this in person, but she insisted we discuss it right then. She explained that she had been talking to her friends, and apparently, I was embarrassing her with my cheap ring selection. She said her coworker had just gotten engaged with a ring worth $40,000, and she couldn't show up to social events with anything less impressive. The conversation lasted 20 minutes, and with each passing minute, I felt like I was talking to a stranger. This wasn't the woman who had cried watching homeless families on the news, or who had insisted we donate to charity instead of buying expensive Christmas gifts for each other. When I tried to explain our financial situation and my concerns about starting our marriage in massive debt, she told me that if I truly loved her, I would find a way to make it happen. That evening, I sat in my car outside our apartment for an hour before going inside. I kept replaying the conversation and looking at that text message. The woman I loved had just demanded I spend money we didn't have on something purely for social media and peer approval. When I finally walked inside, she was already planning our engagement announcement on her laptop, showing me expensive venues and talking about photographer packages. I decided to test something. Over the next few days, I started paying closer attention to her behavior and comments. What I discovered made my blood run cold. She had been documenting our entire relationship on social media as if it were a performance. She had saved screenshots of every expensive item her friends' boyfriends had bought them, creating what she called inspiration boards for our relationship milestones. The breaking point came when I found her group chat with her friends. She had left her phone on the counter while showering, and a message notification popped up. What I saw made me realize I had been living with someone who viewed me as nothing more than an ATM with emotions attached. The messages were brutal. She had been complaining about my cheapness for months, sharing photos of jewelry and vacations her friends received from their partners, and asking for advice on how to train me to be more generous. One message thread particularly stood out. Her friend had asked what she would do if I couldn't afford the ring she wanted. Her response was that she had already picked out backup options, other guys from her past who had been texting her and who could provide the lifestyle she deserved. She had even been responding to these messages, keeping them as what she called insurance policies. I screenshot everything before her shower ended. My hands were shaking as I realized the past 3 years of my life had been built on a lie. This wasn't love. This was a business transaction where I was failing to meet the minimum investment requirements. That night, she brought up the ring again, this time showing me financing options she had researched. She had found a way for us to pay $800 monthly for 5 years to afford her dream ring. When I asked what would happen if we faced financial emergencies, she waved off my concerns and said we would figure it out later. She had also prepared a presentation about how an expensive ring was an investment in our future because people would respect us more. I told her I needed time to think about it, and she seemed satisfied with that response. She spent the evening planning our engagement party and discussing guest lists. Watching her excitement, knowing what I now knew about her true feelings and backup plans, was surreal. She was living in a fantasy where she was the star of her own reality show, and I was just a supporting character who needed to play his role correctly. The next morning, I made my decision. I texted her back, "You'll get what you deserve." She responded immediately, asking if that meant I was agreeing to the $38,000 ring. I didn't reply. Instead, I spent my lunch break at a toy store. I found the gaudiest, most ridiculous plastic engagement ring I could locate. It was bright pink, obviously fake, and came with matching plastic earrings in a package labeled Princess Play Set, ages 3 and up. The total cost was $4.99. That evening, I told her I had a surprise and asked her to dress up for a special dinner. She spent 2 hours getting ready, clearly expecting a proposal. We went to her favorite restaurant, the one where she always posted photos for her social media. She kept hinting about the surprise throughout dinner, practically bouncing in her seat with anticipation. After we finished eating, I got down on one knee in the middle of the restaurant. Her face lit up, and I could see her mentally composing her engagement announcement. Other diners started watching, and someone began recording with their phone. The moment was perfect for what I had planned. I pulled out the toy ring and asked her to marry me. Her face went through several stages of confusion before settling on horror as she realized what was happening. The plastic ring caught the restaurant lighting in the most ridiculous way possible, and the other diners began murmuring among themselves. She stammered out a confused response, asking if this was some kind of joke. I told her I was completely serious and that this ring represented exactly how much our relationship meant to me now that I understood her true priorities. I explained that since she viewed our relationship as a transaction, I was offering her a transaction at the appropriate value level. The restaurant had gone completely quiet. She was trying to process what was happening while maintaining her composure in front of the crowd. I continued by saying that I hoped she would wear it proudly and show it off to all the friends she had been complaining to about my previous gift choices. She grabbed my arm and hissed that we needed to leave immediately. I stood up, brushed off my knees, and told the watching crowd that she said yes. A few people actually clapped before realizing something was very wrong with the situation. The car ride home was 20 minutes of absolute silence. When we got to our apartment, she exploded. She demanded to know what was wrong with me and why I was trying to humiliate her. I calmly explained that I had seen her messages and knew about her backup plan, guys. I told her about the screenshots I had taken and how I now understood that she viewed me as nothing more than a financial resource. Her anger quickly turned to panic as she realized the extent of what I knew. She tried to explain away the messages as harmless venting and claimed that she had never seriously considered leaving me for someone else. When I showed her the specific messages about her insurance policies, she broke down crying and begged me to listen to her explanation. I told her that the plastic ring was staying on her finger until she decided to leave, because it perfectly represented the plastic nature of our entire relationship. She could keep it as a reminder of what happens when you treat people like ATMs instead of human beings. The next morning, she left for work still wearing the ring, apparently hoping the situation would blow over. What she didn't know was that someone at the restaurant had posted the video online with a caption about the most awkward proposal they had ever witnessed. The video went viral within hours. The comments were brutal. People were analyzing every frame, trying to understand what was happening. Some viewers figured out that it was a breakup disguised as a proposal, and the story began spreading across multiple platforms. Her friends started texting her about the video, and her coworkers were showing it to each other throughout the day. By afternoon, she was calling me in tears, begging me to help her deal with the online attention. The video had been shared thousands of times, and people were creating memes about plastic engagement rings and fake relationships. Her social media was flooded with comments from strangers who had seen the video and figured out her identity. I told her that this was the natural consequence of living her life as a performance for others. She had wanted a ring that would get attention on social media, and now she had achieved that goal in the most spectacular way possible. Update 1. The video continued spreading throughout the night. By the next morning, it had been picked up by several viral content accounts and was being discussed on relationship forums across the internet. Someone had even created a hashtag about giving people what they deserve in relationships. She didn't come home that night, staying at her friend's place instead. She sent me a series of texts alternating between anger and desperation. She claimed that I had ruined her life and that she was getting harassed online by strangers. Then she would switch to begging me to post something explaining that it was all a misunderstanding. Her friends were apparently furious with her for the messages I had discovered. Several of them had screenshot her complaints about me and were now reconsidering their own relationships. The backup guys she had been texting were distancing themselves from the situation, not wanting to be associated with someone who was becoming internet famous for all the wrong reasons. That evening, she came home with a different attitude entirely. She had removed the plastic ring and seemed to have accepted that our relationship was over. She apologized for everything and admitted that she had lost sight of what really mattered. She said the online attention had forced her to see herself from an outside perspective, and she didn't like what she saw. We talked for several hours about what had gone wrong between us. She acknowledged that she had been treating me unfairly and that her demands had been unreasonable. She seemed genuinely remorseful, but I could tell that her regret was more about the consequences than about her actual behavior. Update 2. 3 days after the restaurant incident, she received a call from a local news station wanting to interview her about the viral video. Someone had tracked down her identity and contacted her workplace. She was mortified by the attention and took several days off work to avoid her coworkers' questions. The interview request seemed to be her final breaking point. She realized that this story was going to follow her for a long time, and she needed to take control of the narrative somehow. She asked if I would be willing to do a joint interview explaining our side of the story. I declined. I told her that she had created this situation by treating our relationship like a social media performance, and now she was experiencing the natural consequences of that approach. She would have to handle the aftermath on her own. She spent the next few days packing her belongings and making arrangements to move out. Her parents had apparently seen the video through relatives, and they were not happy about their daughter's behavior. They had always liked me and were disappointed to learn about her real attitudes toward our relationship. On her last day in the apartment, she tried one final time to convince me that we could work things out. She promised to change her priorities and said she had learned her lesson about valuing material things over genuine connection. She even offered to make a public apology video to show how sorry she was. I appreciated her apparent growth, but I told her that trust, once broken this completely, couldn't be easily repaired. The fact that she had been maintaining backup relationships while planning our wedding showed me that she had never been truly committed to us in the first place. Update 3. 6 months later, the dust had finally settled. The viral video had mostly faded from public attention, though it occasionally resurfaced when people shared it as an example of relationship disasters. She had moved to another city for a fresh start and blocked me on all social media platforms. I heard through mutual friends that she was in therapy and working on understanding her materialistic tendencies and need for external validation. I genuinely hoped she was making progress and would be happier in her future relationships. The experience taught me valuable lessons about compatibility and authentic connection. I realized that I had been ignoring red flags about her priorities for months, choosing to believe that her materialistic tendencies were just a phase or something she would outgrow. The $4.99 plastic ring became something of a legend among my friends. They would jokingly reference it whenever someone complained about expensive gifts or unrealistic expectations in relationships. It served as a reminder that the most valuable things in life can't be purchased or performed for social media approval. Looking back, I don't regret my decision to end things in such a dramatic way. Traditional breakup conversations often involve promises to change and negotiations about trying harder. The plastic ring cut through all of that noise and forced both of us to confront the reality of what our relationship had become. I'm now in a relationship with someone who values experiences over possessions and genuine connection over social media approval. We've been together for 8 months, and the difference in priorities and values is remarkable. She was actually amused when I told her the story of the plastic ring, and she said it showed good judgment in recognizing when someone's priorities don't align with building a real partnership. The viral video eventually led to some positive outcomes I hadn't expected. I received messages from other people who had been in similar situations with materialistic partners, thanking me for showing them that it was possible to stand up for their values. Some couples even said the video had sparked important conversations about priorities and expectations in their own relationships. The whole experience reinforced my belief that healthy relationships are built on shared values, mutual respect, and genuine care for each other's well-being. When someone views you primarily as a means to achieve their lifestyle goals, that's not love. It's a business arrangement disguised as romance. The plastic ring might have cost less than $5, but it delivered a message worth far more than any expensive jewelry could have conveyed. Sometimes the most valuable gifts are the ones that reveal the truth about what really matters.